let's talk about rumination and what it has to do with narcissistic abuse recovery. It's a common problem for survivors of narcissistic abuse, and it happens when you can't seem to stop the repeating thoughts in your head, which tend to be sad or dark and usually involve worrying that you could have done something different or better to fix things, or in some cases focusing on how much you miss or care about the narcissist. This habit can be dangerous to your mental, physical, and spiritual health because it prolongs and or intensifies your depression and your struggle to think and process emotions correctly. What do you do when you can't stop thinking about the narcissist? One study says that it takes about 18 months to get over a divorce. Another study says it takes anywhere from 3 months to 18 months to get over a regular breakup. Either way, you might find yourself thinking about your ex a little more than you want to. A lot of times these are addictive thoughts. Well, here's the thing. There's science to this. There's an actual scientific reason that this happens. This leaves us feeling obsessed with figuring out the details and the implications of our toxic relationships. We find ourselves ruminating and stuck and spinning as a result of not getting the closure. Of course, it leaves a lot of us feeling the need to either find our own closure or spend years trying in vain to emotionally heal after these toxic relationships. We feel like we can't move forward, and we're not understanding exactly why that is. Let's get there. I really think that the hardest, most painful part is emotional invalidation, which sounds innocent, right? But it's what happens when someone rejects or ignores or judges everything you say, everything you think, everything you feel. Something you should know about narcissists is that even if they're not diagnosed with NPD, they often have this ability to really ramp up romance and make it feel like something amazing. They kind of make you feel like you're the star of your own personal movie, don't they? But they have this habit of kind of cutting you off at the knees for very little reason, if any reason at all. The thing is, narcissists are not capable of being good at relationships. Not really. They don't give you much of a chance. And very often they mess with your head. So what ends up happening is you don't get closure from a narcissist. And when the relationship ends, it kind of feels like you're still in the middle of it. So you're left just where you are right now, kind of spinning, going, what am I supposed to do now? So redirect your thoughts. Have you ever heard about the elephant in the corner and how you can't stop thinking about the elephant in the corner because it's right there in front of you, like this, right? The elephant in the corner analogy. When you attempt to force yourself not to think about the elephant in the corner, what are you thinking about? It's the elephant in the corner, right? Instead of focusing on the fact that you feel just obsessed and you can't stop thinking about them, try flowing with your thoughts. Don't try to stop them. Just let them flow and then imagine yourself letting go of that person. Another thing I like to do is I like to go, I don't want to think about X, Y, or Z, right? So let's say I start thinking about X, Y, and Z, and then I go, no, I now cancel that thought and I replace it with this affirmation of my true divine desire. So I decide to myself, I'm not going to allow myself to continue to think about that thing, and instead I'm going to focus on what I do want, which is usually unrelated to that thing. Even in healthy relationships, when you first fall in love, you might find yourself kind of feeling very ecstatic and excited and hyped up, right? It's a lot like taking a drug, isn't it? When you first start drinking alcohol, you get that elated feeling. You're like, where has this been all my life? Well, the same kind of thing happens in a relationship. And at the beginning, whether it's healthy or not, you will find yourself feeling just like that. Then what happens is that as the thrill of the newness wears off, you start to think you need the other person just to breathe, just to survive. It becomes a psychological dependence. We can literally become addicted to a person just like we can become addicted to food, alcohol, or drugs. What it all boils down to is that it's sort of a way of letting go of our personal responsibility for our own feelings. It's almost a way that we kind of abandon ourselves a little bit as individuals. How is it that addiction changes your brain? Because that's what happens here. So take a look. So how exactly does addiction change our brain? Well, our human brains are very complicated, and they're wired in such a way that we are rewarded when we do something that feels good. Whether we exercise or we eat something that tastes good, or we do other pleasurable types of things that are directly linked to our health and our survival trigger, when those things happen, our brain releases a neurotransmitter that's called dopamine. This not only makes us feel great, but it kind of helps us keep going forward and doing what we're doing. So it teaches us to keep doing that behavior. Now here's the bad part of this whole deal. Drugs, alcohol, toxic relationships, they trigger that same part of the brain, the reward system. But they do it to a more extreme extent, which causes our brains to almost literally be rewired in some really negative ways. If you take a drug, well, then your brain is going to release a lot of dopamine, a lot more than would be released otherwise if you did a workout or some other natural pleasurable type behavior. Your brain's going to then overreact. It's going to reduce
the dopamine production in order to sort of normalize these big sky-high jumps that the drugs have created. And this, my friend, is exactly how the cycle of addiction begins.
So essentially, all of this happens and you kind of lose yourself. A lot of different little things are going to happen. Like, for example, you might not feel normal unless you're with your partner. I wrote a book called Your Love is My Drug, and there was a scientific basis for that. Maybe that person's love is your drug. Maybe you're not doing your daily things that you need to do, like laundry, pay your bills, take care of all the things, because you're so busy being in love with this person or missing this person. Maybe you only feel alive when this person is around, or maybe you don't get anything done at work because this person is always on your mind. Maybe you feel like your life just has no meaning unless that person's around. Does any of this ring true for you? Well, there's a really good reason for it, so take a look.
Studies tell us that using drugs regularly can really limit your ability to feel any pleasure. And we know the same is true for being in a relationship with a narcissist or another type of toxic person. So over time, the drug use and or the toxic person and their abuse will lead us to produce much smaller releases of that feel-good chemical, dopamine. Well, of course, that means that our reward center in our brain becomes far less receptive to feeling anything good, any kind of pleasure, enjoyment, anything, whether from drugs or from love or any other everyday source, such as various activities that you used to enjoy or other relationships, things like that. So once your brain has been altered by this abuse, whether it's a physical or emotional or drug abuse, it requires more and more of any sort of stimulation, whether it's drug stimulation or more ups and downs in the relationship in order to function at even a baseline level. Well, that leads us on to feeling withdrawal, because when we become physically addicted, physically dependent on a substance or a relationship, well, if we stop dealing with that person or we stop taking that substance because we can no longer stand the abuse or because we're no longer having access to the drug or the person, we find ourselves in withdrawal. And in some cases, when you go into withdrawal, in general, you feel horrible. You feel sad, depressed, out of it, sick even. So how does your brain manage that? Your brain, being addicted to anything or anyone, causes changes in your behavior. So there are physical, measurable areas of your brain that are really critical to judgment, learning, memory, decision making, and even behavior control. Now, in various studies, scientists have said that these changes literally alter the way your brain works, and this could explain why you are compulsively, destructively drawn to this person.
So this relationship is changing the way your brain works, it's changing the way your life works, it's taken away your ability to feel true pleasure. If you're struggling with this, a really good way to manage it is by using pattern interrupt, where you do something to distract yourself from your thoughts, and then you focus on something you do want in your life rather than something you don't. Another tip, you can put a rubber band on your wrist, and every time you think about them, snap, snap, snap. And I know it sounds silly, but a lot of people find that to be highly effective. Don't forget, it's okay if you need to take some time to mourn this person. You can cry if you need to cry. You can scream and break and throw things if you need to. Give yourself a little bit of time to do that if necessary. Don't just pretend it didn't happen. Let the emotions out. When you are in a relationship with a narcissist, very often your emotions are cut right off. You're not allowed to experience them or feel them. So try letting them out and then moving forward. That can be incredibly helpful for you. Gone through a thing when you're getting over a narcissist where you can't seem to stop thinking about them, you get all these kind of intrusive repeating thoughts in your head? We call that rumination. This habit can be really dangerous to your mental, physical, spiritual health. It prolongs your depression, your anxiety, and makes it really hard for you to process your emotion. You can't think straight. So what are you supposed to do to get over this? Let's see what Dr. Bryman has to say about it, shall we?
You just got out of a relationship with a narcissist, and all you keep doing is ruminating. Here are some ideas to help you. First of all, be kind to yourself. Know that the longer the relationship that you had, the longer that this can take. Own it. It's part of the healing process. Understand you've been through this because of all the cognitive dissonance and the gaslighting that you went through. Third of all, break up the day. Say at each hour, take 10 minutes and just think of the narcissist. The rest of the time, focus on the present.
Another thing you can do is simply go around where you live, go around your stuff, your office, your home, and take all pictures and memories of this person out. It can help you to move forward emotionally and mentally. Your visual cues of that person, any smells of that person, anything like that, removing those can help you to sort of let go a little faster. This brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, can you see how the narcissist and their source of supply can serve as both the drug and the addict in the situation? Share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your experiences in the comment section below, and let's talk about it. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, before I go, make sure you take a look at the videos I'm going to leave for you right there and right there. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button right over there so we can stay connected and continue on this healing journey together. I'll see you soon.